Hi guys, so this is just part one continued. I just have to, divide these little presentations up so it doesn't take too much data, or the size or the file size is not too big, and especially if I want to upload it on YouTube as well. I have a time limit of 15 minutes. All right, but this one is really short. It's just basically the end of the other one. So we talked about Brexit, we talked about the the UK publishing market. Remember guys, because you are doing your assignments on those specific countries, I'm not going to elaborate too much on the global industry. I'm just giving you an overview of certain markets and certain things happening. I've also posted that video about the trends in publishing, which I think is important that you guys listen to that as well. It is a bit of a longish video, so do it maybe in bits and pieces. And then, yeah, so because at the end of the day, you are doing the research about different countries, and we're going to share it amongst each other, and then that is how we learn. All right, and at the end of that, I'll take all of the top things about each country or each group's work and summarize it then basically. All right. So just carrying on with the previous one is that we said in the US publishing system. So we know that that's also an English market. So obviously it's also very lucrative and profitable. The trade sector is especially important in that country. It does seem like people read a lot, not that they don't read a lot in the UK, but still it's a very popular genre or sector actually. They also have the same thing, or very similar to us, where we do publish a lot of political expose, socio-political titles, especially because of state capture and all the political things happening on our side. Now, America has been going through very similar things, with Trump and with his, all the things that he does and doesn't do. That has really opened up a lot of debate, and a lot of books have been published on, people in the government and his whole way of doing things. So, politics have really inspired a lot of books there on that side, just the same as us. Right. The Penguin and Random House merger. Now, that was one of the biggest things. I think it was in 2013 that it started. I'm not 100% sure. But then there were these two very lucrative, popular trade publishing houses, Random House, number one, and then Penguin. And then in 2013, they decided, okay, guys, so let's merge. It was really a big, not shock, but it wasn't really anything that it was very unexpected for the publishing industry to think that these two are very profitable on their own. They have fantastic author lists and books that they publish and things that they do. Why on earth would they actually want to now, merge with another big company? Well, at the end of the day, one of the main reasons they said in the press releases and etc. was that they actually wanted to increase their market share, because they thought this one has so much market share and this one has so much market share. If we pull our resources, manpower, finances, innovation, business models, technical savvy, all of these things together, we can be stronger together than apart. And we have a bigger list, then we then become a multi big, large company. I wanted to say multinational, but both are already multinationals, which is also another factor. They they already have branches all over the world. And now if they merge, then they are just stronger together and a bigger competitor. And one of the main motivations for this at that stage was also that they wanted to take on the digital giants. They wanted to take on Google and Amazon and say, listen guys, we know you're quite innovative and you do fantastic stuff, but we are two trade publishers who can take you on. And that was one of the main reasons why they actually merged. And it does seem that it worked out well for both of them. I mean, now, as I told you guys, LAPA, the Afrikaans publishing house, have also been acquired by Penguin Random House. So they're now part of the South African branch as well. So in that way, they are basically taking over the world. All right, but that is an interesting thing that happened in the US. So in the US, the 5 big companies make up 45% of the industry income. So with the British one, we said it, I think the first 4 trade publishers make up 50%. But anyway, so it's basically the same, just to say that there are a few companies in both of these countries where Most of the market share is made up of like 4 companies or so. So there are still independents, but it's still very much driven by the main guys, the main corporations with lots of bucks and have good lists. And obviously publishers would love to publish with them. All right, so as I said, the small independent publishers do exist, obviously to a lesser extent, but they do exist because remember, it's the big 5 companies make up 45%. So there is still the rest of it left that needs to be made up. And then think about it, go and Google, who are the largest US publishers? Go and look at the trade sector, the educational sector, and the academic sector. It would be very interesting to actually see. Just go and familiarize yourselves with that. Because as you all know, the USA is really, really big. They have 51 or 52 states. So yes, it's really a very, very big market. And then you still have North America, you have South America, etc., etc. So think about all of these things and how big a market that is. And if you compare it to something like South Africa, not to say that we are insignificant, but in terms of this, we are really, really small in comparison. But I don't think we're doing too bad. All right, so ending off in this section then is basically to say, and go and have a look at your part 2 as well that I've uploaded of your global trends, is just to give you a very brief overview of the British and the US market, tell you more about the macro environment, think about how COVID and all these other issues are affecting us, especially now economically. How many of these publishing industries are being affected by COVID? I know that in South Africa they've also signed a petition or started a petition to bring book sales back and book selling back. Because authors and booksellers and publishers are struggling because we are not allowed to sell our books. And if you're not allowed to sell your books because it's obviously not regarded as an essential item, then what happens to that whole system? What happens to all the books that you've got planned on your production schedule? You can still carry on working on these books, but you all know that once those books are in the market, you need to get it in the market and it needs to be sold. And what do you do now? Now you sit with stores full of warehouses full of books, but you cannot sell it. It's really a very, very difficult time. But we'll see how we're going to recover. We'll see how people are going to, get back on their feet and, what will be published after this as well. Obviously, this is also a huge, huge influence. All right, so this then brings me to your group assignment because this also relates to countries. So we asked you to go and have a look in your group formats, to go and look at all these specific countries and choose one that you would like to go and research. And then you go and research a specific trend in that country. Sometimes it's hard to find. Sometimes there is no specific trend, but then you can tell me something about the industry, on its own. What kind of books do they publish? What is their biggest publishing sector? What are they known for? Do you remember back in the day when manga was a huge thing? Are they well known for their graphic novels? I know, for example, in Belgium, with the Flemish publishers, they are quite keen on publishing things like, remember Tintin? Tintin and comics, strips, they call it. So yes, so what are different countries known for? And I think it's such a nice exercise that Jana, she started this 2 years ago. And I really think it's such an interesting assignment. And I think these two things change obviously as well. Now China can be, very popular and the main country, whereas maybe in 2 years something has changed, whereas Italy was now high on the list, they may have, dropped a few numbers due to what happened to them with COVID. All right, Vietnam, the Netherlands, Germany, Nigeria, and Spain. So go and have a look at those, go and see what makes them interesting, what is something that's happening there. And yes, I'll have a separate video or a tutorial or a thing that I'll talk to you guys about how we're going to do the group assignments, because it's going to carry on in exactly the same format. You will just not be presenting in a class format in front of people, but you also have to prepare some kind of presentation. Right. The other thing is then that you can choose from your group assignment is obviously if you don't want to do the countries, you can choose to pick an author from the following list, and then you talk about them, their brand, and how they, what kind of books do they publish. You really go and research a specific author: Dion Meyer, Astrid Lindgren, James Patterson, Philip Dick, Wilbur Smith, Francine Rivers, Marian Keyes, Gabriel Garcia Marquez. All of these are related to a specific country. Their books have been translated, most of it, and they write in specific genres, and they come from a specific country, and they have their own very specific brands that they communicate or express. So I'm looking forward to seeing these assignments, receiving the written ones, giving you some feedback, doing the class presentations. And now go and look at your theme 5 Global Trends Part 2 for the follow-up on this one. All right, thank you guys.